Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Retro Muscle. In today's video we're going to continue our coverage of the 1980 Grand Prix circuit with our next scheduled show, the California Grand Prix. But before we move on, anyone who wants to catch up on the previous shows held in Florida and Louisiana, you can click the link in the description of this video and you'll get redirected to those videos. Alright, now let's move on to the California Grand Prix. This show took place on March 29th at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. The competition was co-promoted by Physique Productions, along with well-known photographer, writer, and former bodybuilder John Balick. Alright, and now let's move on to our panel of 7 judges. First we had former Mr. Olympia, Franco Columbo, followed by Hollywood stuntman turned actor, Brad Harris. Next we had Judge Bill Drake, followed by 2 former bodybuilders, Dan Howard and Leo Stern. Our next judge was the reigning Mr. Olympia, Frank Zane, and our final judge was Bill Pearl. Okay, now that we've listed off our judges, let's move on to our 11 competitors who were invited out. First we had Ed Giuliani, followed by Tony Emmett, Ken Waller, Bill Grant, Samir Bannout, Steve Reed, Boyer Coe, Chris Dickerson, Robbie Robinson, Casey Viator, and Carlos Rodriguez. Now, before we move on to prejudging, there's just one thing I'd like to point out that I failed to in the previous videos. Back in 1978, after the final placings were called out at the Night of the Champions, fans and competitors were confused that Bill Grant finished ahead of Boyer Coe and Ed Corney, who both tied for 4th place. So Physique Productions responded the following year with transparency of scorecards. Each judge would hold up a visible scorecard for each competitor at the end of the rounds. And with the success of this scoring method, Physique Productions introduced it into the Grand Prix circuit. But other than that, the rules of this competition were no different than any other IFBB show. The competition would have a total of 4 rounds. The first 2 rounds would take place in the afternoon, followed by the last 2 at the evening show. Okay, so let's start off with the first round. This round, judges would compare the competitors as they stood relaxed, and the clear favorites in this round were returning champions Casey Viator and Chris Dickerson. But that's not to say that other competitors weren't getting attention. Similar to Louisiana, fan favorite Robbie Robinson whipped up the crowd along with Samir Bannout as they went pose for pose, matching each other, even though they were supposed to be standing relaxed. And unfortunately, I couldn't find a scorecard for this competition, so I can't go into too much detail on the scoring from each judge. But what I did find out was that Chris Dickerson was the only competitor to receive a perfect score, followed by Robinson earning the second highest score with a total of 96. All right, now let's move on to round 2, and this is compulsory poses only. And this was more of the same as round 1. Dickerson received another perfect score, while Robinson was not too far behind, racking up some major points. After prejudging wrapped up, one of the journalists approached Pearl and Zane in the auditorium parking lot and asked their predictions on who the winner could be. According to Pearl, he had Dickerson and Viator dead even. Although the scorecard might have not reflected that, anything could happen at the night show. Okay, before we move on to round 3, head judge Bill Pearl and Physique Productions faced a situation that was a bit out of the ordinary for bodybuilding at the time. Apparently, former Mr. World Bill Grant had requested permission to use a fog machine during his free posing routine. And I would like to point out that in years to come, Physique Productions made it common to have over-the-top presentations and posing routines. But back in 1980, it was kind of unheard of. Wayne DeMilia and Bill Pearl were left to make a difficult decision. So, they left it up to the competitors to take a vote on it. According to one of the articles, all the competitors were okay with the fog machine besides Carlos Rodriguez and Samir Bannout. I guess they may have felt that a prop like that could be a deciding factor in the competitor's final placing, so I don't blame them for that. But like I said before, after this show, theatrics in the IFBB posing routine started popping up more often, so Bill Grant was definitely a pioneer in that regard. Speaking of posing routines, let's move on to round 3 of the evening show. Now, remember when I said before anything could happen at the night show? Well, according to one of the articles I found, Chris Dickerson was the first competitor up on stage to perform his routine. And if it wasn't enough trouble that his cassette tape was miscued, but the sound system actually broke down, and this forced MC Mario Machado to improvise and fill time with the crowd. But After a couple of minutes, the recorder was fixed, allowing the competitors to finish out the round. After free posing concluded, the top 5 finalists were brought out on stage for the final round. But before we get there, I'd like to list off the remaining competitors' placings. Okay, coming in 10th place and earning $200 was Steve Reed. In 9th place, we had Ed Giuliani, who took home $300. 8th place, along with $500, went to Bill Grant. Our next 2 competitors tied for 7th place, and that was Tony Emmett and Ken Waller, leaving them with $500 apiece. And coming in 6th place, earning $800, was Carlos Rodriguez. All right, now we can move on to the final round, the pose down. Here, all 7 judges were able to make their final comparisons before casting their first place vote. Coming in 5th place, for a 3rd time in a row in this Grand Prix circuit, was Boyer Coe. As stated before, Coe was trying to work his way up to perfection for the Olympia, but admitted to one of the journalists that trying to stay in shape every few weeks is a terrible strain on the system. Anyway, Boyer ended up earning $1,000 and 7 points. Okay, moving on to 4th place, we had Samir Bannout, who actually claimed to be a bit disappointing. In Bill Dobbins' article, he goes on to explain that Samir peaked 3 days prior and was apparently cut to ribbons. Either way, Samir made a great showing and took home $1,500 and 9 points. Okay, now on to 3rd place. Earning $2,000 and 11 points was Casey Viator. Now, this would be the first Grand Prix show that Casey didn't place in the top 2, but with his overall earned points so far, Viator was still in the hunt for the overall title. All right, on to 2nd place, and that went to the crowd favorite, Robbie Robinson. And although he didn't receive first place, Robinson seemed really happy with the outcome. Earlier in the day at prejudging, Robinson openly told Bill Pearl he didn't care about winning and that he knew he wasn't in the best shape yet, but he was just glad to be competing again because he had really missed it. Robinson left that night with 13 points and $3,000. Okay, now on to the first place winner of the 1980 California Grand Prix, and that went to Chris Dickerson. Dickerson received a perfect score in every single round and earned 6 of the 7 first place votes. Along with earning a check for $5,000, Dickerson added an extra 16 points to his total score. And this would put him in the lead with a total score of 45 points, leaving Viator only 5 points behind. All right, that's going to do it for the California Grand Prix. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please stay tuned for the next scheduled show, so don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And if you'd like more classic bodybuilding content, check out my Instagram page at Retro Muscle Mags.